Hey guys, Luke from the Broken Meeple here, and today it's Cooper Island from Frosty Games and Capstone Games. This one I saw at Essen and just thought, it looks good on the table, sounds like a heavy euro, is it thematic? We'll give it a try, but it's getting a lot of buzz and a lot of attention from people who have been playing it. You're either anticipating playing it, or you've played it and you really like it, which is always a good thing. Now in Cooper Island, this is a heavy euro. The weird story behind it is the reason it's called Cooper Island is you sailed past this island with your dog Cooper barking at it all the time, and you saw it was land, and you thought, well, we'll come back here later, but we'll name the island after the dog. And now you have returned to said island to cultivate it and settle down, but then so has every other player in the region, and that's why you're all on this island effectively trying to cultivate it. You're not trying to kick each other off or anything, it's just, well, you've got your section, I've got my section, you've got that section. But all of you now want a piece of Cooper's Island. That's essentially the backstory. Yeah. But fair enough. There's a nice little snippet in there as well about what's the relevance of the dog in this. It's I won't spoil it for you, but it's a nice little story as to who this dog is and what it is. There is a personal, sentimental reason behind the theming of this game, and it's quite nice to read. So it's just a nice little extra little addition in the book for you. But what this definitely is a heavy euro. The idea is that each turn, there's only 5 rounds, but you are performing actions, and there's quite a few of them at your disposal, and it's predominantly resource management. You have to cultivate these areas of the islands by using these hexes of different terrain types that get you these cubes. The higher the terrain type is, so imagine that you're building kind of like a little 3D structure of the peninsula here, it gets you cubes that are worth more of their value. So 3 high will be worth 3 stone. This one that's 4 high might be 4 food, for example. But you're using these resources and money as well to do all sorts of different actions that are potential actions that will score you victory points. You might build boats that get you income each round, be it cubes or more money or something else. You could clear some ruins off your peninsula and build statues that get you points each round. You could, send goods to I forget what they call it, the harbour master and their shipments. You go, right, you need what this round? Okay, I'll send you 3 gold, 2 stone, and a food. There you go, and get some points that way. You could build buildings, small buildings that get you a perpetual ability for the game, or large buildings that get you like an endgame scoring opportunity, and there's a deck of cards for each. You don't know which ones are going to come into play. You pick them as you build them, which is quite a cool concept. It's nice that it's not simply, oh, it's the church and the tavern and the granary. No, you might build a small building and then look at 4 cards and go, I quite like the look of that one, I'll build this one. And the idea is that through the 5 rounds, you have to manage your very tight, more on that later, pool of resources and money in order to work efficiently, use these actions on the board, which is done by worker placement. You start off with a couple of basic workers, but you could get more, or you could upgrade one to a special worker, which requires you to ditch an old worker, but the special worker has spaces on the board which give you a bonus as you do the action. Like you might be able to do both options instead of one, you might get a bonus action as well as what you're doing on the board, simple stuff like that, but nonetheless, it's all useful. As well as this, you're placing the tiles on your map, as I said, including these little, what they call inset tiles, which have little, look a bit like coral reefs in a sense, but like tiny little islands, and they get you a bonus as you build them. But the interesting weird quirk with this, it's essentially another way of getting bonuses, but I've got to admit, I was quite impressed by this. The score track are these 2 boats that you sail around your map and around opponents' maps. Effectively, you've got this peninsula that's like a big crossroad of islands, and as you gain these helm points, you move one of the 2 boats around the island, one clockwise, one anti-clockwise, and every time it goes over one of those island tiles you've placed, or an opponent's placed, you get to do that action again. And it also keeps track of the main bulk of your score, which is going to be the helm points. But that's pretty sweet, because once it gets off your peninsula, it goes onto someone else's island, and every 5 points you get a little logbook to record that you've had 5 points, and it gives you a bonus. But then you get onto the opponent's island, and it's like, if I gain 3 helm points, I get to leapfrog over 2 of his islands, and I'll get those bonuses. You found a way to make a score track interesting. Yeah, round of applause for that. That takes some doing to make a score track one of the more interesting parts of the game. That's not a bad thing. The game is generally very good, but I was just shell-shocked by how... I mean, it sounds small, and it is. It's not like a huge thing. You know, you're moving the ship and you're getting bonuses. It could have been represented by a normal track. But just the idea that it's your score track as well, I just found that... For some reason, that just blew my mind. But, you know, little things like that, little ingenious, innovative tweaks like that, it sung to me, that one. But, like I say, it's a small aspect. But the thing with this game is, firstly, aesthetically, it's a very pleasing package. You've got a lot of content in this for the price. I mean, you've got a giant bag full of all these double tiles that are pretty decent artwork. I mean, we're not talking stellar, but it's colourful and there's lots of them. I mean, you've got a whole bag full of these things. Not to mention you've then got a bag of single ones. You know, these are double, those are single. You've then got all your player components that go on your board, and there's quite a lot in here. You've got the money, you've got cards, you've got the peninsula frame itself, which are these boards that you put together in a certain setup depending on player count, and they look cool. I mean, like I say, the artwork is not something that I would start recommending it for Art of the Year awards or anything, but it's good. It looks colourful and it looks pretty on the board, which a lot of these heavy Euros struggle to do some of the times. But you gain a lot of pieces in the box, you've got your player boards, and you've got, I have to say, again, round of applause here, one of the best written rulebooks for a heavy Euro game I have ever seen. I mean, I looked at this and I thought, cool, this looks quite complicated. And at Essen, people were taking a long time on their turns. It was like several hours they played. Speaking of which, top tip Capstone games, don't let people self-teach themselves these heavy Euros. Have a demoer and have games that only last 3 rounds or 2 rounds or something, you know, like 60-minute demos. Don't make them play the whole 3 hours.
Everybody got that?
Bad way to do it. But, no, I'll rant aside. But this rulebook, I looked at it and I thought, whoa, this is pretty daunting. I mean, it's a 28-page rulebook. There's a lot of content in here. But you look at the player board and you think, oh my god, there's all this iconography everywhere. And there is a lot to digest. I mean, this is a heavy game. Not recommended for the faint-hearted. But I looked at this and I thought, this is going to take me forever to learn. How am I ever going to learn this? Read through the book, and the way it's written, the wording, the fact that everything is set out in logical order, that different pages are allocated to different actions, all the iconography is explained, pictorial examples, the fact that every time I came up with a question that was worthy of an FAQ, it was answered in the same section. It's like they thought of exactly what I was going to ask, and they'd already answered it. Yes, you're going to have to look back in this book during the game because there's quite a lot to get in, but I gotta say, for a 28-page rulebook, this is written really well. I have played heavy Euros where reading the rulebook is a chore. This was not a chore. By the time I'd read it once, I felt like I was in a half-decent position to teach it. Now, the first game I played of this, someone else taught me, but the rules were still in my head, and I thought, oh yeah, that bit, and that bit, and that bit. It made sense. And when you look on your player board and understand the iconography, a lot of it is relatively intuitive as well. The graphic design is done quite well here. You know, things for drawing a tile or placing a tile, how high it's got to be, that kind of thing. It's on the board and you can generally figure out what the action does before it's explained to you. It's just really well laid out. Now, of course, yes, there is a lot of text. You have a lot to read in here. This is not a pushover. You're not going to be able to go, oh, well, 10 minutes later, right, let's play. No, you got to put the effort in. But I got to say, well done. One of the best, if not the best, heavy game rulebooks I have ever seen. If you can continue this, I don't know whether like Capstone Games or Frosted Games had like the main control over this, but whoever did, give them a raise or give them a donation or something, because I want them to work on more of these heavy rulebooks. Top notch, brilliant. But as I say, getting sidetracked, you know, aesthetics, production quality, it's pretty solid. In fact, the only thing that slightly irks me is the fact that my box is damaged, but oh well, it was a review copy at the last minute, what do I expect? But, you know, everything in here, well produced. I mean, the coins are kind of generic, but they look different than just a little token, and you've got a lot of wooden pieces and a lot of board, and that bag's open, that's great. But, you know, there's a generally good amount of production quality in here. Now, the gameplay itself, Do you like tight Euros? And a lot of you do. And I like it to an extent, without being too restrictive. This one is one of these rare cases where it's restrictive, but I want it to be. It's really odd. Maybe it's because the theme sings to me a bit more here. I mean, games like Lorenzo and Magnifico, that's a very restrictive type game. But it just bores the living pants off me. I don't care about its setting, I don't care about its theme. It feels like it just punches you in the face every chance it can get. And it's based on die rolls, which again is a luck random thing. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that game. This is quite restrictive. And this is tight. And I'm not just talking about, oh, I've done my jeans up a little bit tight. No, I'm not talking about, oh, you know, old-fashioned Elizabethan lady has to put on a corset. Oh, that's a little bit tight. No. This is both those things combined, and then also I am strangling you at this point and closing my fingers on your neck and tightening my grip at that. That's how tight this game is. You literally cannot do everything in this game. It's physically impossible. You will not have the resources or the cash. But even when you're just trying to do one thing, my God, you've got to be good at that resource management. The first game, you are going to do rubbish. You know, someone who knows this game even once more than you do will cream you at this game. It's just going to happen. And I remember a perfect situation with at GridCon where myself, Stephen, Polyhedron Collider, and another kind gentleman, he was teaching us the game, and the three of us were playing it. He creamed us, but my God, the two of us Steve and I were doing rubbish. But we were having a blast playing it. And that's something that's weird about this one. Because normally this sort of thing should be something that would like go, oh, I'm not a fan. You know, it's too restrictive. It's too tight. But this one, it feels like a tight game that you can master. And because the game is wonderfully produced, the fact that you get these bonuses every now and again for doing stuff, and the fact that there's a lot of different paths to victory that you can take, it makes me want to play the game more and more and more and hone my skills at it. And I can do this game reasonably well at this point, although, like I say, an expert at this game is going to cream me, no problems. And certainly most people I teach, I'll probably cream them. But I'll make mistakes, and if you make a mistake in this game, it's not like, oh, I'll just recover from it in a minute. No, you make a mistake in this game and it's going to hurt a lot. It can cripple you a lot if you do not get your resource management on top. But I like resource management. Maybe that's an aspect of why I think this game is a bit more enjoyable than other tight restricted games. I like this whole thing of building up this 3D peninsula in front of you, and I think that's another aspect as well, because you feel like I built this. You know, this is my land in front of me. It's covered in mountains and it's giving me all the stone and gold I could ask for. Oh, let's look at the old village over there. Here's all my settlements. I've got all the cloth in the world. I'm trading it for money, and now I can build all these income boats. It's stuff like that that just elevates it above a tight, restrictive, dry game. And this one doesn't feel dry. Okay, yeah, you're just doing actions to get buildings which will get you points, but it's not a point salad. I mean, points are close in this game. Every point matters. Games will finish with people on like anywhere between like 20 to 30 points. 1 point means a lot when you're barely scoring between 20 and 30. It really is that tight. It can really be every point matters. And that sings a lot as well, because I hate it when you get games where it's like, oh, you get 2 point bonus for going here, or like this card gives you 3 points. How many points do you end up with? 300. Maracaibo had this issue, Reavers and Mudguard had this issue, Stone Age has this issue, where you get points, but they feel so insignificant to the final score. No, you get 1 helm point in here, and it's like, oh, good, a point, fantastic, a point, because it's probably 1/30th of your score in the whole game is that 1 point you just got. You manage to get 2 or 3 points from something, and that's like a bonanza turn. It's really good to get points in this game. But you've got to be careful with those cubes, because you don't get change. You can only spend off the islands in the value that they are. You've got limited storage space to put other cubes, and they're only worth 1 when they're in there. The costs for buildings and the income boats are pretty high, and they progressively get worse. It's like, whew, you've got to be on your A game when you play this. But you could be playing with a bunch of new people, and you could be all on the same wavelength, where everybody's doing badly. But again, the game will still finish quite close, and you can underestimate how well you're doing at particular times. Although, yeah, if someone's creaming you, you can kind of call the winner a good halfway through, which is a slight negative, but, you know, it's not a massive deal, because you think, right, I want to play this again. I want to try and learn it a bit more. As I mentioned with the rulebook, there is a lot of iconography to get into here, but it's relatively intuitive. The resource cubes, the numbers that say how many cubes you need, the money you need, the hand symbol for income, a lot of it's intuitive. But there's a lot to sift through. I mean, your player board is this smorgasbord of iconography and spots to put meeples and, well, no, workers, discs. Why'd it have to be discs? And, you know, buildings and various other stuff. It's a lot to take in. But you look on the board and it's got very good pictorial representations of, oh, I see, that's the small building action. Okay, to put one down, I need a coin, 2 wood and 2 stone, which gets me a point, and a choice of 1 out of 4 cards. I can literally tell that just from reading the iconography, without even having to read the rules in order to find out. So, again, heavy game. You're going to need to spend some time with it, but surprisingly, compared to a lot of heavy games, it's not as difficult to learn as you might think. I actually think this is easier to learn in heavy games like some of the Vital Lacerda stuff, like Lisboa. That's still a nightmare for people to learn that one, but this one I think was actually easier to learn than Lisboa was, and certainly was easier for me to explain because of the way the rulebook's laid out and the iconography. So, very tight gameplay, good resource management, you know, it's definitely well produced. If there's any negatives other than the fact that it is very tight and restrictive, you know, I'm fine with it. You know, I prefer games to be a little bit more lenient towards you, but this one is one of those rare cases where I'm like, yeah, it's tight, but I'm enjoying building up my peninsula and doing these actions and getting these building powers. And the bonuses, like in the Vital Lacerda games I just mentioned, it's tight and restrictive, but it's rewarding to get a bonus every now and again. To go, I sail off this island. Oh, I get an extra cube. Okay, what can I do with this? Or I get an extra money from that. Oh, I get 2 points here. And oh, I sail over 2 islands. I get more bonuses. You know, oh, I built an income boat. Right, I get the bonus on that instantly. And then I get it every round. So even though it's tight and restrictive, it doesn't feel like it's punishing you too much, because every now and again it's giving you a little bonus. Whether you can make good with that bonus is another thing, but it gives you something to work with. It just feels nicer. I don't know what the word is. You know, it appealed to me a lot more than other drier games. And I think maybe the theme and the aesthetic appeal of this one just sung to me a bit more. I mean, yeah, this isn't the most thematic game in the world. I mean, you plonk a couple of buildings down, but the building abilities suit what the building is you're building. I mean, if you get a granary, for example, you don't have to pay as much feeding costs. And that's a little bit of an annoyance. Yes, you do have to feed your people in this game. It costs food. It's another aspect of the tight resource management. I would have liked it. Maybe they could have streamlined it a little bit and just not had the feed your people thing. But there's a small niggle. But yeah, if you don't like feed your people mechanics, then you're going to get it here as well. And of course, it's going to be quite tight. This is not one of those games, though, where you feel like you need to get as many workers as possible. Certainly, having more workers is good, but you gotta pay the food, and, you know, it's hard to get the resources to be able to get all those workers, because you need, you need to achieve milestones, like build 2 statues, build 2 buildings, etc. It's a lot of effort to get those. So yes, you can end up with a lot of workers, but it's not the be-all or end-all of the game, particularly as you need to afford to feed them. But, yeah, I'm really enjoying this one, actually. I mean, I honestly thought, when I first opened the box, God, massive rulebook. Oh God, tight and restrictive. Is this going to be a problem for me? But it literally isn't. I really enjoy this one. I mean, there's other Euros I'd rather play, and certainly this is not a short game. This is a good 2.5 hours. You know, if you're used to this game and you play it with 2 players, you could probably get this done in 90 minutes. But you're looking at a 2.5 hour game with this, which is quite long when you consider that you've only got 5 rounds and you don't do a lot of actions. I mean, in terms of time to action ratio, it's pretty bad. But there's a lot to think about, and you've got the choices, and you've got that cool peninsula. It just sort of comes together in a nice package. So I do enjoy this one. I feel that there's easier games that I would probably sooner play for the time length. And certainly I feel the game could be a bit shorter than the 2.5 hours, because some of that could be spent in downtime waiting for other players to take their turns. Because, you know, you've made your plan, you've kind of figured out your next move, but then you've got the tension of people in the middle, like, oh, you've stolen my space. Well, now what am I going to do? Hang on, I need to think. And that will happen a lot, and you are going to get people with AP, and, you know, because this is quite AP inducing at times, because you have no idea how good your actions are. It's just going to be like that. And like I say, it does have a little bit of a negative for me, but not at all. I still think this is a solid game, better than I thought it was going to be, and I think heavy Eurogame fanatics out there who are looking for something really tight, really meaty, really like, cool, I need to play this many times in order to get good at this, you're going to get a kick out of this one. This was a good surprise for the year for me, and I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. You know, there are other heavy Euros like Predaporter and stuff like that I'd probably rather get to the table if I'm going to play it for that long, but this is still a really solid game that surprised me genuinely in how much I ended up liking it. So that's Cooper Island from Capstone Games. If you like this kind of thing, then it's totally worth checking out, because I don't see why you would have a problem with it if heavy Euro games that are super tight are your thing. Especially when, unlike a lot of other tight, heavy Euros, this one is at least aesthetically pleasing. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video, and regardless of whether I'm crying in the corner because I got no idea what I'm supposed to do in this game to do well, it's still only a game at the end of the day. I can always try again and improve my gameplay. Take care, and I'll see you next time.